Hello and welcome to our bite-sized sessions on useful models and concepts that could support your CIPS revision process. Today's session takes the form of an interview and we'll be exploring the different specification types and how these might impact upon procurement and supply chain. So before we get going, can you remind us all what a specification is?
Yeah, so specifications are super important for procurement and they play a pivotal role in the success of any contract. Put simply, a specification is the definition of requirements that a buyer is wanting a supplier to deliver. So during the pre-contract or award stages, the buyer is looking to set out this definition, this specification, so that a supplier can bid appropriately and suggest what resources and the price for delivery. And then during the delivery of the contract, what the buyer has wanted to do is use that specification to lock in a supplier to be obligated to deliver. So put simply, a specification is a definition of what's required.
So what are the two types of specification?
Yes, you're right. There are two main types, and they operate in direct contrast. So on the one hand, you have a very detailed conformance specification. The word conformance, we have a requirement for a supplier to conform precisely with our requirements. It's a detailed specification, often referred to as an input specification. So this will be like a technical specification where the focus is on prescribing very specifically and methodically exactly what you want the supplier to do with no deviation. Now, on the other hand, you have this very high-level specification. We call this a performance specification. So it's all about looking at the performance level or the output or the deliverable that we want a supplier to achieve. And so here we move away from the detail, and by prescribing exactly what is wanted just as the end goal, you're giving a lot of freedom to suppliers. So this performance specification is often referred to as an output. So that's two directly contrasting types.
So given you've just said all of this, why would anyone want to take a high-level performance approach?
Yeah, well, I can understand the concern, because if you don't prescribe the detail, you're worried that you might not get what you want. But this is really about understanding where the competence or the expertise lies in the delivery. So it's often the case that we're engaging suppliers because they are absolute experts, maybe they're technical leaders in their field, or they've got some kind of competence that is way beyond what we have internally, and that's why we're engaging them. So by specifying a performance, an output-based specification, you're leaving degrees of freedom for the supplier to use their own expertise, their own resources, and their own methods to achieve that. Now, that often can end up being more cost-effective, but it also can allow for the supplier to deliver in an innovative way, and really leverage what they do best. So that actually, in many situations, could lead to a better solution.
In that case, why would anyone want to use a conformance specification?
Yes, you are right. The concern with the conformance specification, of course, is you're locking down a supplier and not allowing them to use their innovation. But again, it comes down to where does the expertise and the competence lie in terms of engineering the solution. And there are certain situations where it's really important that our supplier dovetails what they do into a grander scheme of things. So imagine the situation where you're looking for the supplier to be technologically compatible with what we are doing, or you're requiring them to deliver something in a very prescribed nature. You take, for example, the global pandemic a few years back. You had pharmaceutical companies producing vaccines which are obviously registered with the various authorities. Here, when it comes to mass manufacture around the world, you're looking for factories who will conform to a specification. This will be about a chemical recipe and a formula. It's about a production process. And so you can't have a factory doing any way that they want. They have to conform to a precise specification. And so therefore you end up with these two contrasts. It's really about thinking through what do you want and how do you want it achieved.
So what would you suggest are the takeaways for the CIPS learner?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's really important for a CIPS student to recognise the pivotal role that a specification plays. So in particular, working through the role that a specification plays during the sourcing process leading up to contract or award, in particular about getting bids from suppliers, and then that post-contract role that a specification plays in terms of it being locked into the contract. Also, from a CIPS perspective, understanding these two types that we've just talked about and when they might be applicable. But as I say, for a CIPS student, the whole role and different types of the specification are really important.
I hope you enjoyed this session and thank you for watching.